Welcome back to another episode of the Boss Juice podcast. With us today, we have David Haddad of Haddad Inc. David, we've been looking at your website and we've seen a lot of you guys talk about culture. How important is culture to you and in business?
Well, culture is a fancy word of making sure you're taking care of your family, and that's your workers. So we have a thing at Haddads. So the most important things are my bank, insurance company, my wife, and my employees. And we operate on those four. And the employees are the critical component for everything to happen the way it's supposed to happen. Knowing that, life is hard and people have things going on and people are sick and dying and life's confusing, and a 20-year-old doesn't think like a 40-year-old who doesn't think like a 6-year-old while the bullets are flying. And then, Uma Thurman's trailer has to be perfect that day. We liken what we do similar to the airlines, in our prep and how we build our equipment. The only difference is if the airline mechanics screw up, the plane crashes and people die. For us, we lose work. So there is a difference, but we model a lot of things as the airline industry does.
So your motto is the can-do people.
We are the can-do people. Yeah. Yes, it is. So you have a question in there, sir.
Yes. So can you speak a little bit about that? Why is that your motto? Why is that the culture that you've established?
Well, the origins of the can-do people started in the 80s when the phone book, the Yellow Pages, began, and then it converted to Reuben Donnelly. And then my dad, along with the Yellow Page rep, came up with a half-page ad in the Yellow Pages, and they evolved into We Are the Can-Do People. So that is the origins of that motto and slogan. And then over the years, it transferred from daily truck rentals to towing, and then the movie industry. And the movie industry is either everything's really great or everything's really bad. It's not for the weak. You have to be organically OCD, obsessive compulsive, and drink alcohol to be able to deal with the day-to-day drama. What we do. They make a movie, they shoot 12 to 14 hours a day. Transportation starts 2 hours early, 2 hours after. We're blessed to have, out of 100 people, maybe 20 people that have been here more than 18 years. So we have a lot of continuity. Wow. And we're always training, which ties to the culture. So, if you're authentic, you don't have to be perfect, and the people working for you feel that they're respected and treated with dignity. And that's not every day. Life is hard. But if they have that overall culture, that cloud of feeling valued, then we think that, first of all, it's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. And then the obvious awareness is that will transcend and go towards our client base. So you talked about... Was that pretty complex but simple?
No, I think that was very beneficial. Really. Yeah.
Okay.
So you talked about the industry being demanding. So how does one get into the industry of film? So
it's a good question. I get asked that frequently. There's two halves. How does somebody get in the industry as a crew person? And then how does somebody get in the industry as a vendor, whether it's catering or craft service? So there's no direct portal for any of that. It's one of those really weird things that everyone tries to figure out. To be a crew person, you have to have experience. And for the work that we do are higher end work. So they're all union involved with SAG, Directors Guild, IATSE, Teamsters operate our equipment. So we'll bid the job against 7 or 8 other vendors. And whether it's in Miami or New York or Chicago, then Sony or Paramount hires the local Teamsters, and then they operate our vehicles. And then we as a vendor, like a Fancy Avis or Hertz, are there to support it, because it's moving, wiggling, and jiggling, similar to airplanes. And then we provide technical expertise. We do a lot of workforce development. Hands-on, I do it myself at locations, and we're constantly training people on to operate the equipment, because if the equipment doesn't operate correctly, if someone makes a mental error, like I was visiting a famous TV series in New York, and this time of year it's cold in the morning and hot in the afternoon and cold. So, the person operating it had forgotten to turn it on to air. So I walked in and it was like 95 degrees when it was 80 degrees out. So the actor would have come back and said, "Oh, my trailer's broke." Meanwhile, it's not broke, but it wasn't being operated correctly. So that's the dynamic of how our stuff works. And I lost track of the original question. What was it?
Yeah. So how does someone who wants to get into the film industry, whether it be
right. So in the crew part, whether you're a grip or an electric or an office person, you can go to NYU, Columbia. There's universities that have schools for directing and writing. But the practical, the blue collar part, I call the people that actually work, frontline people that make the movie. You just kind of have to know somebody. And if you apply to a union hall, most likely they're not going to do anything with it because their goal is to make sure they're at 100% employment. But the people that do independent film, the lower tiered stuff, not that the benchmark is non-union, but the college films or the $1 million films, they gain experience in that and they love that world. It's a gig working thing. It's a lot of fun. And then eventually, they want health insurance and they want to retain money and buy a house. So then as they learn their craft, they'll move up. So there are 105 countries. There's 105 programs, and there's 41 programs in the United States. There are film incentive programs. And the way that works is every state's a little bit different. But for example, Pennsylvania says, hey, Paramount Pictures, if you spend $100 million, we'll give you back 25 cents on the dollar for qualified spend. Georgia is 38 cents. New York is 30 cents. So the film industry in the United States and around the world has changed since 1995. And the cities, states, and federal governments, UK, Ireland, Australia, Bulgaria, Romania, New Zealand, pay the production companies to shoot in their zone, and then they rebate them either in forms of a tax credit, which gets applied to taxes that they owe in that country, or they can sell the tax credit to some other business in that area. So in Pennsylvania, our program's $100 million every year. July 1st is the fiscal year. And then the way they formulate, they can only give 20% in 1 year, and they kind of did something wonky the last year. So this year we have 100 million starting July of 24, but we really only have 40 million because they sort of overpromised money was already spent. So for those in the film industry right now, especially in Pennsylvania, they're going to need to get another walk of life. There's not enough work here unless they do the smaller independent stuff, or they'll follow the money and they'll go and move to Georgia or wherever the work goes. You're fairly nomadic in the film industry.
Okay.
You have to follow the money.
And that's interesting though. So that's kind of a good lead into why Pittsburgh. Why are you guys headquartered in Pittsburgh? Is it a growing industry here? It sounds
a long time ago in 1905 and 1910, my parents' marriages were arranged in Syria.
Okay.
And they came over on the boat through Ellis Islands. My parents were born in 26 and 27 that passed. And I asked my dad when I was 12 years old, why Pittsburgh? And he said, I don't know. Because they had relatives there, and it was all a church community. And then as far as Haddads' story, which you saw on the website, my dad worked as a welder at Jones & Laughlin Steel. He was a graveyard mechanic at a Chrysler garage, and he also worked at his brother-in-law's Amoco gas station at the Boulevard and Allies in Wood Street, which is no longer there. And an Amoco gas station became available in June of 1954. They had no money. Nobody had any money. And he was able to raise $1,000 on his own, my dad, and then borrowed $1,000 from each family. $1,000 in 1954 is like $30,000 now, right, or more. And the $3,000, interesting enough, when he signed his dealership for Amoco, was the cost of a tank of fuel, an 8,000-gallon tanker.
Wow.
Yeah, now it's like $45,000 for a tanker. So we started with that. We had no family car. It was a work car, which you see the pictures of it. And then he wasn't making any money, so we decided to get into towing. And remind me to answer the question about the blue hoods. Where did that come from? It's a little interesting story.
All right.
And so we did the towing and wasn't making that work. It was auto repair, then towing. And then against the advice of his lawyer, his insurance agent, and his accountant, he bought a used pickup, a repo from Mellon Bank, and rented it for $6 a day and 6 cents a mile. Imagine that in modern society, if you have three professionals telling you not to do something, and my dad had the courage and vision to do it, right? Which, today everybody, Gen Z, I don't know whether they could make that decision.
Right.
And then I was born in 55. I worked at the gas station since I was 12. And my original job was to paint the logs red for the tow trucks. I was very passionate about getting the details right. And then went to college at IUP and then came to work here at the gas station in 1977 full-time. And I graduated on May 21st, and I had to start May 22nd. I'm still pissed me off. But that sort of set the tone. And as the daily rental flourished, back then U-Haul was not a great company to rent, so there were a lot of the independents were flourishing. And then U-Haul pulled its game together, and now they're number one in the country, surpassing Ryder and Budget and Hertz. So while that was all going on, while we were renting to the public and towing, a movie came in, Flashdance, in 1982, and the department heads called the transportation coordinator, came to Haddads and wanted to rent this pickup truck and put a hitch on it. And I was like, no way, we're not doing it. And then we got to know them, and then we did rent it. And that was our first movie. We rented one truck, a box truck and a pickup, 2 trucks. And then those same people came back and did a Ron Howard film called Gung Ho, which was shot mostly over in Main Street in Homestead. And that's how it sort of began. And then we would rent station wagons and cars, nothing specialty until 1988. And we were working with 4 different LA department heads sending small trucks here and there. We did Witches of Eastwick, No 8 out in DC, but just renting trucks that you would get. And then the one advisor mentor said, okay, kid, you're going to buy 3 cast trailers and a makeup trailer from some guy in LA. So here we are, Ma and Pa in Pleasant Hills, PA. Movie business isn't like now. And we have to wire $9,000 in 1988 to someone we don't even know. We didn't even know what a wire was, right? And so we send the money, and the 4 LA drivers drive the equipment from LA directly to Dead Poets Society in Delaware. We didn't pay any money up front. The rate that we had to pay was so aggressive that the guy that sold us said, oh, you don't have to pay me till January. And this is crazy on how this all came about. And everything went perfect. We ended up buying 4 or 5 more makeup trailers from this guy, and then we start building our own equipment in the 90s. So that sort of got how we are today. Right now, the industry's in a downturn. It's not the best time to get involved. Everyone's losing money, including us, in the United States and the world. There's just dramatically less work. In 23 was the 3 guilds went on strike. In 24, we had the Teamsters and the IATSE have a contract renewal. They didn't go on strike, but the slowdown began. So the ebbs and flow for your listeners are going to be, we really won't know what the new norm is until November of 27.
Gotcha.
Because then 26, the 3 guilds renew again. So there'll be a valley because there was a 6.5-month strike. And in 27, the Teamsters and IATSE will have a contract negotiation. So it's not the best of times. So a lot of people that have been around for a long time and they're in their 60s, they may retire. And then the younger people, won't be gainfully employed because the pie is smaller. And I sound like I know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. Nobody really knows.
That's all right. Actually, your employee was telling us that you have a very good intuition for seeing market trends and where things are going. So
a lot of sleepless nights.
I bet.
Trying to think it out and read the tea leaves, as is the case for everybody.
I think that's important, though, to kind of highlight, though, that as a business owner, you're running a serious operation here. I think a lot of people don't realize how hard it is to operate a business. You talk about sleepless nights. What is the toughest part about this business?
Samantha's sitting to my left, my executive administrative assistant. Do you have any insight on what do you think the hardest part is? The hours? The strain? I'm getting tips. She's squirming, listeners.
For you personally, is this the question? I think it's the travel. You're very hands-on. So you're every city that we're in.
Yeah, well, I thank you for that. Samantha Spitznagel, ladies and gentlemen. formerly of West Virginia, and one of my ace co-parts. She travels with me too.
Nice.
So I love my job. I love what I do. I love the interaction. Organically OCD, obsessive compulsive, and fits well with the film industry. So I travel quite a bit. What I do is very personal. So when you rent from my competitors, there's about 35 companies that do what I do. 8 of them are larger. The difference is, I know the script, I know the crew, I know the locations. I spend a lot of time. So that's a strain to her point, and it has to be a commitment by the minute, by the hour, by the day, by the month. So, I hate to say I've sacrificed, but I've given up some family time for sure to be effective. And we are the number one vendor in the country. There's no one that duplicates what we do. They try, but they're just not there. They might hit a mark here or there, but they're not consistent. And that's it. You have to be consistent. You have to be involved emotionally, and we are very passionate about what we do.
Yeah, you can tell you like things to be handled a certain way. I can tell just by your style when you walk through the door that you want things done a certain way. And when Samantha said, sorry about you, little microphone here, when she said that you're a hands-on person, I think a lot of us are like that as business owners. We just want to make sure that every little T and, T's crossed, the I's dotted. I want things to be beautiful. I want things to go. I mean, you can have a plan, and I know in planning, things are going to change. There are circumstances that pop up all the time that you didn't account for. I'm assuming your business is no different. But one of the things I wanted to ask you is, when did you realize that this could be a functional business? As far as when, I know you're buying trailers, you're starting to put your own things together. When did the lights really turn on where you're like, holy hell, this can work?
In 95, 96, 97, we had stopped doing the towing and we stopped renting to the public, and then we really fully committed to it. And just going backwards for a second to your point is we project certainty, which is when you provide. So I represent my clients and my employees at the same time. One of the things when you were talking about culture, I remember seeing in Staten Island, there was a labor issue going on, and the lady held the sign up, said, treat employees like customers. And that always just resonated with me. And, you know how with your relatives and family, you kind of sort of jerk them around because they love you,
Yeah.
right? So you have to project love in your culture daily. You don't have to hit a home run, but you can't hit the ball if you don't take a swing.
Yeah. So where in this business, where do you see it going? And because when we were talking earlier with another one of your staff members and touched on it, talked about, the way that you're able to see trends and things happening in the industry. And right now you talked a little bit about the ebb and flow of the business, but longer term, I look at, we're subscribers to Netflix and Prime and Max and all this other stuff. And I see all these, their own productions, their own film. How is that changing things? Does that impact you and your business?
Well, the current state is what we said earlier, is it's going to be wonky between now and 27. But for the viewer, I don't know that the viewers would see much difference. Netflix is king, 270 million times $11.50 a month or whatever they're charging. The legacy films like Warner Brothers, Sony, all them are morphing. Warner Brothers almost was sold. They almost bought Paramount. They watched the papers, right? That's going on. Apple is really a tech company dabbling with big numbers, but still they're making good product. No, I don't know. I don't know the answer. I know there's a contraction because there is, and none of us, we're all nervous of what it's going to be like. So with this contraction, it's almost like that airline again. People aren't flying. When COVID hit, you have overcapacity. What do? Do you lay people off? We don't have a government check. We don't lay people off at Haddads ever during COVID, during all the shortages. We're all about our people.
To market your business and the services that you provide, though, in that, how do you stay in front of people? What do you do so your name is top of mind?
Yeah, we have, that's a fair question. We are already known as being the best. So our job is just to stay focused on certainty and projection. And then as we get new people in, we have to brand ourselves better, which we're working on now. So I get someone that's 35 that maybe made one movie, making a phone call. We have 5 or 6 people on our sales team, so now we're beginning in the education. And then, young people think they know everything. So the challenge is, how do you project that information in a way that it can be digested and processed, and at the same time point out, what's the difference between Haddads and Company X or Company Y. So it's an ongoing, whether it's the rental business or selling something online, we still have the same challenges. But we have the advantage in that we are the best.
Who are the people that you stay in front of in order to make sure that you're getting the work?
As people call in, I have networking dinners. I entertain people. I make sales calls, shoe leather, go into the offices. I was in Cincinnati on Friday. I was in Westchester, PA on Thursday, and I flew back to New York Saturday. I was at an event on Sunday in New York on location for the public and outreach. So I personally feet on the ground. So as one-on-one sales, you find a client, you exchange with the client, and then you keep up with the client. You have a large volume, so the trick is to have people not feel devalued, but valued all the time. And it's authentic, because I enjoy the people I meet.
What are some of the most unique requests for trailers or ancillary pieces that would be involved with production?
I won't tell you the actor, but the actor had to get on a barge and for 15 minutes and go from New Jersey to the Statue of Liberty for this scene, and we had to put a specific toilet lid, on the toilet seat in case the person wanted to use that toilet. So that was really funny. I'm trying to think. Sam's over there. Do you know anything else that was funny? That one sticks out. That was a long time ago. We get a lot of crazy requests. We do specialty build-outs and tweak it out. For here, Al Pacino needed something particular, so we have a construction department, and that we're known for doing that specialty stuff. Or the makeup lady wants something to the left or to the right. Oh, I have a great story. So on Sex and the City. And I work with the Teamsters, so they're always sort of, I'm going to say, busting my balls. It's a New York expression. And my phone rings, and it's a woman. And I'm listening to the voice, and the woman says it's Kim Cattrall, and I'm laughing, thinking who put this lady up to it, because it's not really Kim. And it was Kim. And I was talking to her like it wasn't her. I'm not going to get into the detail, and I realized, oh, shit, it's the actress calling me direct, which never happens. And it was about something with the TV was to her left, and she wanted it to her right. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not a big deal while she's being made up. So it turned out I was flying in the next day, so we went over and we rigged something up temporarily. But what I said I won't repeat, but I was a little floored that she called me direct. And it was the makeup lady, who's a friend of mine, just giving me shit. And because Kim wanted the TV to the right, and it was to the left.
That's hilarious.
So those are funny stuff. They're not really a big deal. I rewired Al Pacino's satellite on Donnie Brasco while he was sitting with his feet 5 inches from my face with his socks on. He was so cool. Really? Very, very cool. I was with Russell Crowe on a job, and he was doing whatever that is when they do workout where it's super hot. So I went into the trailer, I could barely breathe, and he was calling me mate. Chatting it up. So that was kind of cool. I went into, I won't tell you which show. This is the P story. So I get a call, and the actress is complaining, and she's like 5'3", and I'm 6'1". The actress is complaining that there's a smell in her trailer, which, so as a vendor, that's really bad. You do not want smells, because once it gets in everyone's head, you've done it with diesel gas. So I bust through the trailer. The PAs are trying to stop me. I don't give a shit. I walk in the trailer. She wasn't there. And I go in, and I could smell something. I went out. No, she didn't flush the toilet, right? So I flushed the toilet, and, and it's a big actress. And so she comes in, and she's looking up at me. I'm looking down at her. Everyone's nervous because the vendor's in the trailer. And I look at her. I said, didn't your mother teach you to flush the toilet? Right? She apologized. Yeah. We were laughing. Yeah. But I switched the trailer out that day, because once there's a complaint like that, you have to make it go away. So those are kind of like obsessive OCD you got to learn,
Yeah.
over time through trial and error.
Right.
Try to put yourself in the actor or the makeup or the wardrobe person's place. It doesn't really matter whether it's accurate or not what they're saying. The point is they're spending all of this money for the actors. Think about acting. It's a head thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
They got to act, and they got to think, and they got to get into character. So if the fan's making a noise or there's a smell or the trailer's crooked or all this crazy stuff, it's our job to make sure they're in a physical space where they can get to the mental space to perform. And that's one of the reasons we're better than the other vendors, is because I get that. Of course, now they're going to hear your podcast and know my secrets.
Oh, it's going to be incredible too.
Right.
I think that's important though, because one of the things on your website too is there's a video that your team shared with us about what you guys do and your culture and all that. And one of the guys that's interviewed in that video states how he was pulling one of your trailers, hit a pothole in New York, and immediately he was like, "What do I do?" And your team knew exactly what to do. How do you
remember that phone? I remember that day. The front of the trailer broke off on Canal Street in Manhattan at rush hour.
Perfect timing. Right?
I'll never, ever forget it. But we know things are going to happen, and we position them in advance, and our competitors don't do that.
Right.
Yeah. And there was a lot of F-bombs coming off.
From everybody.
But literally, that guy was a high-end department head. And together, in concert, the Teamsters and and Haddads work together to put out a good show with the transportation department. Doesn't really matter whose fault it is; it has to work.
Right.
So on the people side of things, with actors, actresses, and your engagement with them. So at the end of the day, people are people,
Agreed.
right? And there's cranky people, and there's really nice people, and
They
they're
have good days. They have bad days.
You got to deal with them in a way that you can be you. You don't have to
Well,
be. Can you do that?
no, it's not about me.
All right.
It's only about them. Yeah, no, it really isn't about me. It's committing to create a space and whatever you have to do in front of it. So there's a managerial training called To the Left of the Boom. Have you guys ever heard of it? To the Left of Boom. So boom is when the bomb goes off in war, right? Kuwait, whatever. And the military studied it. And what they did was, they realized people were getting killed and hurt and maimed. So they start studying to the left of boom. And, where did they buy the stuff? When did they buy it? How did they eat? Where did they go to the bathroom? When did they plan it? Where did they recruit? Mm-hmm. And they went all the way back to concept to the left of boom. That's what we have to do. Mm-hmm. We have to start so far out that we avoid the boom. Yeah.
Well, I think you
on
need
a daily
to be,
basis.
You probably need to be aloof. You need to be in front of people, and you got to be solutions oriented, like on the fly, to be able to address things that could pop up or personalities that could go crazy.
Well, Samantha knows, as my team, as we call it stop and pivot is one of our sayings. So, most people in the mentality is you want to begin, middle, and the end. We're like, you begin and then you may not back to it till 6 hours later. So when things happen, you have to react to it in a meaningful way, an authentic way. So we stop, we pivot, we work our way to resolution, and then another thing happens, and it becomes like a 14-tier chessboard going on at the same time daily. That gets back to the alcohol part at the end of the day.
Is that one of your Davidisms? Katie
Yeah,
had
it's like
mentioned
one
that
of the
you have.
deal. We were during COVID, we were having Friday tequila, Friday pizza Friday. There wasn't a lot to do. There was just, I think, 15 of us right in the building at the time, trying to hold it together because everybody kept thinking it'll be over in 2 weeks, which it wasn't.
A lot of tequila. That's good though. That's a plus. So you travel a lot.
Travel a lot.
You're on the road. You're in the sky all the time.
Yep.
How do you manage that? How do you manage as a business owner? How do you manage your personal life balances?
Well, let's have a conversation about my main carrier of amazing Delta Airlines. I got to do a plug for them.
Yeah.
So in my expertise in transportation, there is no other airline that even gets close to the product they put out daily in and out. If you think about that 80 tons? That 80-ton plane up in the air, and you think about the multiple layers of things going on at the same time and training, and they have what was it? 92,000 employees. 92,000 employees. Think about that, right? 10% probably call off a day. 9,000 employees. They have to think out enough people in that space to cover that shift. Pilots get sick. People get pregnant. People call off. And the planes have to work. And then to the left of boom, making sure that Pratt Whitney engine is installed. I have to tell you, I was flying. So Southwest had that unfortunate death with a window broke. So 2 weeks later, I was flying out of Atlanta. And remember, I'm in transportation. I'm extremely aware. And I'm in seat 3D, my favorite seat. I'm in 3D, and I hear a boom. And the plane, I think it was at 737, the plane lists left, and the pilot corrects it right away. But now I can't tell, because I'm OCD, I can't tell if my mind is playing games. Did I really hear that? And what you do is I looked down the aisle at the flight attendant, and she was calm. So I thought, well, I'm probably imagining it, right? So without announcement, the guy does a turn. We go back and land. I get off the plane. I go over and look at that left engine. There's no steam coming off it, right? The engine blew. Yeah. So Delta Airlines, to their credit, so we came in gate, whatever, B16, B17 was the replacement gate. They had another plane there within 40 minutes in the midst of 3,000 flights a day, 40 minutes. And they had a red coat, that's the people that manage it, come up and announcing to everybody. And I got a call from Delta Airlines. I got a call. And the lady said, what happened, blah, blah, blah. And I explained everything to her. Oh, no, I sent in an email congratulating them on great performance because it's what I do. Mm-hmm. And they called me up to check, for details. And I said that you need to have a platform. So when you have 140 people not knowing what to do, you need to have a platform, a riser, so that when the red coat is talking to everybody, that you know where to look. I mean, that's just an incredible airline, 92,000 people. How does that happen?
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan. And I can say to you, in 16 years, they have never lost my bag.
Really?
When I go to one of the baggage places for Delta, I'll walk in and say, hey, just so you know, you could lose my bag 4 times and I won't care because you're so far ahead, it won't matter. And then I get nervous. I might have just judged myself into losing my bag, but they're still good.
That's great.
So that's my plug for Delta Airlines. I also recommend to all your listeners that you get the Delta American Express card, because everything you're spending on anyways is points, and you're already spending the money, and you really receive value anyways, and that's my plug for Delta.
So don't
what was the
leave home
original
without it.
question? How did I go there?
With all the travel and work, how do you manage the work-life balance?
I have an incredible wife, St. Karen, 41 years this September 17th.
Oh, nice.
Congratulations.
And 3 children, and our personalities suit fine. And I live fundamentally in Brooklyn. She lives fundamentally in Pittsburgh. We're going to stay married for 41 years, live in different cities together. And she is the key for everything to be balanced. And she meets my clients, different clients, and goes with me. It's a great egg. Couldn't do it without her.
Yeah.
As far as balancing other stuff, a lot of my clients are my friends. So when I travel, so I'll finish like on, say, Cincinnati on Wednesday and have to be somewhere Friday. So Thursday's the in-between day. We call it in-between. So I flew down to Fort Worth on Delta Airlines. I flew down and went and visited a client on The Lioness, which is coming out on Paramount, I think, in the next 2 weeks. I highly recommend it to everybody. So I go maintain those relationships too. So it's a mixture. It's like personal. It's not fake. It's not like I have a sales list and I write down when I'm going to call somebody. It all just ebbs and flows. Sam keeps track, when in this city, who do I want to call? And actually, we have in Chicago, there's a restaurant called Gibson's Steakhouse that's on my list now to go to. And then there's a couple ladies I met that opened a restaurant. So we keep track of all the cities because I'm elderly now. I need help to keep track of it all.
So being around all of these great entertainers and, like I said, actresses, actors, a lot of talent, is that something that you had been involved with ever in theater or musicals, plays, anything like that?
Yeah, no, my world is behind the scenes. I do talk to actors and very rarely agents and lawyers. Our role is below the line is the slang. So we're involved in the direct making of the film. So the people that are the creative producers and the people up the food chain design the stories, we don't really interact with them.
Okay.
And then we interact on occasion with ADs, first AD, second AD. But usually if they're calling us, something's really wrong because they're way up the food chain. So the transportation coordinator. So if you think about it, in the film industry, it's a company. They're all gig workers. And if you think it vertically, there's the executive producers, then the producers, and then there's a production manager, which is like a GM. And then horizontally, it's makeup, wardrobe, construction, special effects, stunts, all that stuff. And one of the department heads on that horizontal is transportation coordinator, which is usually a Teamster. And then we bid the job with him and the GM, the production manager, is how it works.
So in Pittsburgh, I know 31st Street Studios, a popular buzzword. Do you do a lot of work there?
Yeah, but we don't make those decisions. The Paramount, Sony makes a
Gotcha.
decision. They make their deal with 31st Street or what's Sam's called? The one in Crafton. There's two or three. We actually built a sound stage in West Mifflin.
Oh, okay.
That's brand new for purpose built. And the worst time to build a sound stage after 3 years is have it finish during a worldwide actor strike. And then that was the Teamsters IOTC this year. So, and then the state of Pennsylvania only has 40 instead of 100 million. So the building's not going to rot out. So I don't know that we made the right call on that one.
So before I forget, you had mentioned for me to ask about the Blue Hoods.
Yes,
story.
the Blue Hoods. So we're known as the Blue Hoods
Okay.
in the industry. And when they see a Blue Hood, they think Haddads immediately, anywhere in the United States, including LA. So when my dad was in the tow truck days, way before the movie rentals, he was getting severe headaches in the wintertime. And he would tow trucks around the country in cars. And he went to the optometrist or the ophthalmologist, and they reasoned that the white hood in the wintertime was reflecting the light and giving him headaches. He said, paint your hoods another color. So we painted blue. And then Pepsi copied us. Pepsi's hoods are blue. We were blue first.
There you go. That's awesome.
Human interest story behind the scenes.
Really cool, really cool. So when did your father step away from the business?
He passed away in 1997. So right around 95, 96, you had asked that question earlier. It wasn't the realization that this is what we're going to do. It was more like fate. That's how I would describe it to you. You go to work every day and then you get a call. Then you get to work and get another call. It wasn't like something like we sat down one day and said, we're going to do this. It just, life events evolved. But 95, 96, he would sit in his office. He would drink his coffee. And the people would still come in and buy gas. We make like 3 cents a gallon. And they would come in and talk shop with my dad. He was like, Larry King. And people would come in and had solved the world's problems after he passed away. I had a couple of the older people. And, you have self-doubt when you're the boss's son, right? You're always worried about the business going under because you did something wrong. And we were busy. I had a woman who was like 84 and a guy that was like 89 corner me as they come in for gas. And I said, I just want to let you know, both of them, different conversations. You're ruining your dad's company. You don't take the time to talk to the people. And these are the people that he would have coffee with because I didn't have time to have coffee. I was busy trying to work money. So that always resonated with me as far as that reinstated that fear that you can't screw up.
That's big
Customer.
too. Really is.
Yeah. It was real.
That's a lot on your shoulders.
Well, yeah, you want to screw up dad's company. But he got to enjoy us being busy. He got to enjoy meeting some of the clients. This is a great story. So what would happen is the Teamsters would return the equipment from different cities, and they're getting paid big bucks. So when they dropped off the equipment, we had to get them to the airport, and we didn't call cabs back there because it was offensive. We had to take them. So my dad had this big gray boat-looking Cadillac. He loved that car, right, in his senior years. So after he passes away, over the next few years in other cities, people said, oh, man, sorry to hear about your dad. I said, oh, I appreciate that. I said, oh, we had such a great time. I said, what do you mean? So instead of taking them straight to the airport, on every run, he would take them to Mount Washington. They'd get out of the car. They'd look at the city of Pittsburgh. He'd take him to lunch. Like, I had no idea that he was loitering. And these guys, I'm promising their bosses, they're going straight to the airport. My dad is taking them. Like, oh my God.
That's hilarious.
So funny little, yeah. So people, it was my dad. It was fun.
Where is the car now?
Car's gone. Car's gone. Yeah. The original tow truck, number 107, Scott that works for me kept nagging to get rid of it. It was a big wrecker that I would tow big garbage trucks from. And we didn't use it for years. And he talked me into selling it, and it was a mistake. I should have kept it. Wow. We're never going to use it. It's just, part of history.
Man, he was client relations way before that was a popular
Oh
thing.
yeah. Listen,
Awesome.
we used to tow wrecked cars, and I ran a tow truck. My brother's passed, but we would be the family business in the tow truck. And we would, there was a restaurant called Jarny Garneau's on Route 51, and people would park their cars illegally, and Whitehall police, we towed for them, would call, and we'd tow like 5 to 10 cars, 20 cars, whatever it was, on Fridays and Saturdays. And then the people would become drunk out of their minds. Because back then you could drive drunk, no one cared. And drunk out of them and start fist fights. We had a German Shepherd that was there that was that looked ferocious but wasn't. It was a puppy. Puppy mind.
So you guys have been around for a very long time, 30
1955, that's a long time. Yeah. July 54 is when we started.
So how would you suggest to an entrepreneur or someone who wanted to start a business to build a business that, like withstands the test of time? Any advice around that?
Well, I think you have to accept that you don't know. Mm-hmm. That's hard to do. When you try to do something, you have to have the money, of course. Married with 2 kids, probably not a good plan, right? Unless you have the money. And you have to supply an authentic need for your company to be successful. You can't manufacture the need, although some people do, right? I can't do without it anymore. Mm-hmm. Like a refrigerator. Mm-hmm. You don't really need a refrigerator to live, but you got to have a refrigerator. So they should come up with something, that would be like that. And then they have to live and breathe it every day. I'm not anti-millennial and Gen Z, but I don't know that they have the fortitude. They have enough life experience to stick with it. So my grandparents came over on the boat, as I said, right? There was no social life. You worked all the time. And then my parents were born in the late 20s, right? And their parents wanted to make their life better. Right so now I'm a baby boomer, right? I'm born in the 50s. Mm-hmm. We want to make our kids' life better. My wife wants to make the kids' life better than I do. I want them to work, so they learn. So now you have this 5th generation away of intellectual processing, and they're not bad. People aren't bad, but they don't know how to work. They don't know that they know what they don't know. Mm. They just don't, and they have to live it. Maybe they'll have a life experience. We use a Kubler-Ross model all the time, right? What is it? Denial, anger, bargaining, down to acceptance. There's 5. Yeah. So we teach that all the time. We're not passing the test, but there's 5 elements of a mental process that the younger generation doesn't understand how to process something bad that happens. So you tell someone to F off, right? Now their feelings are hurt and they can't function for 3 days. Right? So they're not taught how to accept that and process it and move on. Mm-hmm. If you get on Facebook, there's all these motivational things coming from Anthony Hopkins and Denzel Washington and whoever, and they're coaching modern children on how to process, which is hard. You just don't read something. You have to,
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's where I think, too, these podcasts, these stories that we capture, these little failures, these amazing things that have happened, that's what's cool about sharing all this with people. It's like the Cliff Notes to a degree, where number one, they get to know a little bit about you and your business, a local business that's serving an incredible industry, for one thing. So yeah, it's really nice to capture these and be able to share this with people.
Yeah, it's basically, I wouldn't recommend the video because it's pretty foul, but embrace the suck. You can't grow without pain. You can't grow. You have to make mistakes. And then that generation has to be taught to make mistakes and to move on.
Right.
And in the movie industry, the bullets are flying literally so much going on all the time. You don't really have a lot of time. Then you're back to that alcohol again.
So, but going off of that, if you don't mind sharing, what has been one of the toughest or hardest experiences you've had while running this business, or failures that you've had?
Oh, I can tell you that one. Oh, that's easy. So I was in Red Hook, New York, and Hurricane Sandy was coming, but it wasn't called Hurricane Sandy then, right? They didn't know. It was a Saturday afternoon on October 29th, whatever year that was, and I was in my car looking at the 2 storage lots, 2 acres of lot. It was near the water. I drove down and looked at the water. It was 8.5 feet down, and I sat in my car for an hour and a half, not knowing what to do because, we didn't know what it was going to be, about to be. And I remembered thinking, oh, shit, my dad's not here, because I would normally call my dad, what do you think, right? And it's years passed. And I called a few clients and said, hey, maybe we should move these trucks to higher ground, because we don't know. And I called 4 clients. 3 clients said, no, it's too expensive. It's a Sunday. And 1 client did move. Orange is New Black. Did move their equipment. They spent a lot of money to get those guys to come in. And the hardest decision was that day. And because I didn't choose wisely, we had 180 vehicles under CD water. We had 90 vehicles in New Jersey lot and 90 vehicles on the Red Hook lot, water in between, that were flooded up to the windows and tractors. And it was a horrible mess. And we learned about salt water and what that does to electrical wiring and vehicles. And I remember where I was in Brooklyn, it's where I learned that you cannot prepare for nuclear war. So with the hurricane, there was, in New Jersey, there was no power. So the gas stations couldn't pump gas. And in Brooklyn, New York, they were allocating fuel. People were literally with 2-gallon cans of fuel. And then in my building, we had electric in Brooklyn, and it was the 3rd day, and I have flatbeds. It didn't matter what anything cost, running round trip from New York, replacing trucks, foolishly thinking we were going to shoot the next day. The absorbing of the calamity, the realization, not just myself, but everyone in the industry, is we weren't shooting the next day. We're movie people. We're like a Monty Python movie. You see that movie where Holy Grail, right, where it's just his chin's up? That's what we're doing. So it's like the 3rd day, the 4th day. I'm not focused on our New Jersey side of the water, and we get everything done, and I go over to New Jersey, and we have a company house that we rent. They've had no heat for 4 days. It was cold. You couldn't go to the restaurant to eat. In the same issues. We ended up rigging up one of our generators to the power grid, which you're not supposed to do. So we had electricity. We had fuel trucks, one going to Connecticut and one going to Philly every day, bringing back fuel. I hired a caterer to cook giant lunches and meals for my people. I couldn't solve the heat problem. The guys, we didn't have any gals working there, but the guys said it would be okay. And I learned that if you had a nuclear bomb going off, it's not going to work. There is no fix for anything. And here we are. And then here we are in both New York and New Jersey shut down for an event. And it was a merger, I think, of 3 storms in the way. So that was October 29th. On October 29th, human interest story, on October 29th, a year later, I had a heart attack.
Oh, my.
Or no, I had the accident, right? I had the accident. I had a car accident. My wife and I were leaving. I had some surgery. We got run over by a triaxle. I had a broken neck. And then October 29th, the 3rd year, I wrecked my car into a boulder. I was parked and I missed it, and I wrecked into it twice. So St. Karen, my wife, called me the next year, and I did. She just, don't go anywhere October 29th. So on the 4th year, I rested and I stayed out of harm's way. And then the curse was broke.
Yeah.
I
was wondering how you remember all these specific days, dates, month, day. You keep bringing up certain things. In that particular case,
yeah,
how could you ever forget? Right?
Yeah, they're like dramatic. They're dramatic moments. They're life-changing events that you absorb and Kubler Ross it out, and and figure out how can you move forward.
I think it's interesting though, because you brought up, and when you're sharing these hardships, about, you said twice, like, I learned from this. What I learned is you can't do this, or I learned that you can't solve this. Speaking of what you're talking about with the younger generation, and what did you call that test about they can't process the information?
Kubler-Ross.
Kubler-Ross test. So do you think that the younger generation is having a problem with learning from mistakes and experiences?
I think that parentally there were mistakes made, and the kids have challenges now because, they didn't have a job. Mm-hmm. They had the shared trophy, participation trophy, as you heard about.
Yeah.
And whereas the older generation, like the 1910, I was saying that they're training their kids, for the workforce, but it wasn't a conscious, I'm going to train. It was life.
Yeah.
And that's just what you did, Yeah, I think that there's a deficit there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then you get, foreign. Any country, you get foreign people where they work harder because that's their culture, and they have an advantage over U.S. kids.
Does that concern you with like employment when you're employing new people?
Concerns me in the medical industry.
Yeah,
As I get older.
That's a great point.
Tell you right now, I want to know who skipped that day. Right? Where'd you learn to put that needle in my arm? Oh, I took that day off. I played hooky.
The whole participation trophies, things like that. We've spoken on other podcasts about that. It drives me nuts. It really does, because I feel like you're prepping these kids who are young adults now for failure. Basically, they don't know how to think through problems because everybody has been there to help them through these things. And I can't just swipe and say everybody's exactly the same, but I think I think the whole culture of like dummying down the universe, and I'm gonna pick on taxes for a minute, right? So if I was drinking, I would go further. But if you think about it, this is the United States of America, the land of the free, where if you work hard, you will be rewarded. If you do the right thing, you'll be rewarded. So in this whole culture of taxation, and I don't even know who the 1%ers are. I don't even know what that means. But I think the fundamental problem in our country is, right, the old guy, is there's no flat tax. It should be a rate, 4%. I think everyone, whether you make 50 grand a year, 500 grand, or 500 million a year, whatever your company is, I think everybody should pay the same rate. And then you get rid of the divisiveness of haves and have not. You want to earn more money? You get 3 jobs. And if we were to somehow, Ross Perot, before you were born, had come up with that, the same for companies like my companies. No depreciation, no this, no hokey pokey. Think about trusts and lawyers and accountants. Mm-hmm. Think about how fast it would be for a company to do their taxes, right? Because it's all computerized. There's no special anything else. I think that's one of the fundamental problems in our countries is haves and haves not. And we've un-Americanly taken away people's right to prosper. So if you earn 100 grand a year and you go to 150, now you're in another bracket and now you're earning less. So it doesn't make any sense to me at all. No, it really doesn't.
I had to get that in. But I should tell you this story about this producer and this director and an actor, and they were in New York, and they were in the elevator. It was a small elevator, and they looked down, and the actor looks down, and there's a magic lantern. So the actor picks up the magic lantern, he rubs it vigorously, and the genie appears and says to the actor, "You can have one wish." So the actor looks at him, he thinks about it, he looks at the director, he says, "I wish I were in a deserted island with a beautiful woman." Poof, off he goes to that island with a beautiful woman. The lantern drops to the ground. The director, seeing this, cannot be outdone. He picks the lantern up, rubs it again. The genie appears again and says to the director, "I will grant you one wish." And the director thinks and says, "I wish I was in a deserted island with 30 beautiful women." Poof, off he goes to that island with 30 beautiful women. So the producer sees this all. He grabs the lantern, proceeds to rub the lantern. The genie appears and he says, "I grant you one wish." And the producer says, "I wish they were back in 10 minutes. But a bump.
That's great.
So where do you see your company in the next 5 to 10 years being? What is like your big vision? If you had a genie and you could rub it and you could, say anything you wanted about the company, where would your company be?
I'll answer it the way you ask. So I didn't have a vision. It was some universe power. We work hard and do the right thing. And the universe led us that way. But answering your question, what do I think in the future? My son, DJ, is here, and my daughter, Kelly's here. I'm blessed with Samantha and Maeve and about 18 other people that are way gifted above average. So I would expect the company to continue. Now, what would it look like 10 years from now? Well, with AI, it's unknown what that's going to look like. Will they be working only in sound stages? Will there be location work? I remember seeing The Gladiator, right? Great
Love
movie,
that
Russell
movie.
Crowe.
New one coming out next
All
month.
those tigers and lions, they were all fake. They were all CG.
Really?
Yeah. Did you see Greatest Showman on Earth?
I did.
Right. Remember the elephants? Fake.
What?
Remember the guy with the gun shooting on the horse?
Yeah.
Fake. Right. So you can't tell, right? So with that in mind, it's really unknown how it's going to evolve. But the fundamental reason they make movies is to make money, not to satisfy some culture, right? They find a need. People need to watch movies. So I don't know yet. Sam and my son and daughter, they're going to be tasked with this unknown. What will it morph into? Understanding that it's not charity. You know, they have to make money.
Absolutely.
Well, part of your business is keeping people comfortable while they're away from home or whatever
True.
for extended periods of time. So, you know, that may be part of, regardless of AI or how things are pulled together, I think they're still going to need these types of services, and you'll keep elevating that game.
Well, possibly, but if they're not going to go on location and they're not going to go in the streets, then they wouldn't need us. And if they're going to use, and this is, you know, a long ways away, but so say they'll take you and they'll copy you, like you're Russell Crowe, they copy you, and then they'll pay you $10 million and you don't even have to show up. The computer's going to act for you.
Do you think we're
Whoa.
far away? How
Yeah,
far away do you think
boom.
we are from
That's
that?
interesting.
What's
Do you
that?
think that's a near future?
Not in my lifetime, but it's certainly something they're thinking about. Why? Why would they do that? To make money,
Yep.
right? So if you don't have to spend $80 million making a movie and you can do it all for 20 and never leave the room and pay out, you know, X amount of fees. I mean, that's really what a lot of the actors' resistance was, although they made it a little more complicated than it was, and it's not something that's happening shortly, but that's everyone's fear, but that's normal. I remember the VCR, they thought there are going to be less movie theaters because we could watch it on tape, and that didn't. So you don't know, you just don't know. But it is based on profit.
That's good. So Dave, you've given a lot of good advice. You've shared some incredible stories.
I don't know what's good advice. Good.
But the one question we ask all our guests
Uh-oh.
is
Should
that,
we do a drum roll?
yeah, let's do it. That question is, if you could give one word of advice to a young entrepreneur or someone who wanted to start a business, what would that be?
That you have to live it every moment of every day. That would be my advice.
I like that.
Yeah. Can't be part-time.
And you
Take the
seem
weekend off, not working.
and you seem to embody that. So that's good advice.
Me and my team.
Yeah.
And Samantha Spitznagel and Maeve Palmieri and Scott Lowry and so on and so on and so on.
Wow.
Yeah.
David, it's been a pleasure. We thank
This
you.
is great. I was so happy to do this. Did I mention Delta Airlines yet?
No, I don't
And how
think
well
so.
they do. And you should tell your listeners. So I was harassed by a pilot. He's getting ready to take off and says to me, hey, will you do a pod? And I thought, oh my God, I don't want him pissed off flying the plane. So I said, yes. And then my staff dropped the ball and I ran into him again and I was more fearful. And he said, hey, and he was sitting behind me with a club. He said, hey, think about it. Do you want to do the pod? And I said, sure. And then I immediately called my staff at that moment because I couldn't bear to have a third confrontation. This guy's like 6'6", 280-pound pilot. I don't even know how he fits in the chair. And his name's Buddy. I don't know why to call him Buddy. He's scary as shit. So that's why I did this today.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I'm glad he got you on.
He got me on. It's a pleasure, gentlemen. God bless. All right. Take care. Thank you for the
Thank you.
time. Right. Bye-bye.